Greetings, everyone. My name is Linsa. I'm the product manager at Nimblework. Be it morning, afternoon, or evening in your part of the world, we extend a warm welcome to each of you as we gather here today for an insightful exploration of 5 ways to AI-proof your project management career. I still see a lot of people joining in. So while they join, let me start with the agenda and set the stage for a thought-provoking and insightful discussion. I'll start with quick introductions, then we'll have a quick word from our sponsors. Following that, we'll get on the main topic. Throughout the session, we strongly encourage your active participation. We will have a Q&A by the end of the session. First and foremost, we'd like to express our sincere gratitude to all of you joining this webinar, brought to you by Nimblework. Nimblework is a leading B2B SaaS provider of collaborative AI-powered adaptive work and project management, products and solutions. So just a quick bit of housekeeping before we get started. As is customary, we are recording today's webinar, and we will ensure that you receive the recording and the entire session via a follow-up email from our session today. Please feel free to ask questions, share your insights, and engage with us using the Q&A feature on the Zoom panel. Your contributions will enrich our discussions and help us tailor the content to your specific needs. So our featured speaker for today is Elizabeth Harrin, a luminary in the world of project management with over 20 years of corporate project management experience. She has seamlessly transitioned into the role of an independent practitioner, dedicating her career to education, mentorship for project managers. She is an influential voice in the project management community. Her prolific writing, with 7 traditionally published books on project and change management, continues to shape the industry. Beyond her literary accomplishments, she is an esteemed speaker in prestigious organizations like APM and PMI. I would also like to introduce Mahesh, the co-founder and CMO at Nimblework. He is an esteemed career professional with extensive experience in project management, product management, marketing, and consulting. He's a recognized Kanban Fellow by Kanban University and is a certified Kanban coach and trainer. So let's dive into a quick interactive session to get your insights. So we have prepared a poll to gauge your thoughts on today's topic. This will help us to make this webinar more engaging and informative. So I hope all of you see a pop-up window on your screen and the poll question and answer options. Simply select the option that best aligns with your thoughts. And I see people filling in the sheet, yeah.
Yeah. It looks like we have a fairly even distribution. On the first one, more like 60, 40.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
When we end the poll, will everyone be able to see?
Sorry, go ahead, Elizabeth.
When we end the poll, everyone will be able to see the results, won't they?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. The behind the scenes look is quite interesting.
All right. I think we seem to have a good enough answer. Linda, you can probably share the poll results.
Yes.
All right. So Elizabeth, I'm not sure how representative this is to your typical audience, but so we have about 60% who have not yet started implementing AI, and about 30% who have, and some are not so sure. What do you think about that?
I think that's quite representative, actually. I'm certainly not surprised by it. I'm hearing that a lot of organizations are interested, but haven't really got as far as doing anything about it yet, and implementing new tools.
Right. And there are also a lot of sandbox experiments going on, right? So in a large organization, it's quite possible that some people may not be aware of what's going on, but they're certainly experimenting to see how they can leverage AI for various things, including project management. And then as far as preparing yourself is concerned, I guess everybody is either already pursuing or are very keenly interested in pursuing some study of AI and how it can help. All right. So let's go beyond this. Linza, thanks very much. I think we can take this slide away. I don't know how. I'm going to close it on my end. Hopefully, we can move forward. All right. So let me share my screen and continue from where Linza left off. And all right. So I'm going to take just a couple of minutes to talk about NimbleWork and our products. So NimbleWork was earlier known as Digite, and we've been around as a company for more than 20 years. We have been a pioneer in web-based project and work management solutions and products. Gartner calls it adaptive project management, which is sort of a combination of both project work and regular work, sort of the keeping the lights on work. And also people refer to adaptive project management as the combination of traditional methods of working on projects and agile methods of working projects. So we provide really comprehensive capabilities around that. We are headquartered in Cupertino, California. Some of you may have heard about it. This is in the Bay Area in the San Francisco region, closer to San Jose actually, which is where I'm based. We've got some really large customers and some across the board very small customers as well. Over 1 million plus users around the world of our products. And if you'd like to learn more about the company, please do look at nimblework.com when you get a chance. Just a quick overview of the kind of products that we provide. So, like I said, we cover sort of the adaptive project. Sorry, was there a question?
You are in presentation mode. It's not in slideshow.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry about that. Okay, does it make better?
Yes.
Thanks for pointing it out. All right. So in terms of the capabilities that we provide, we have a number of products that give the full sort of gamut of features that you might need for doing different types of work or projects based on the kind of activities that you do and the kind of methods that you've adopted. So we provide agile, we provide regular work management. We have a tool that's a retrospective management tool, Nimble Retro, very popular. We have, of course, hybrid, and we have the overall enterprise capabilities. In addition, we have OKR and project portfolio management capabilities that allow you to align strategy to execution, and therefore you have the ability to let leadership look at what's going on in terms of meeting of corporate objectives, and for teams to feel aligned to what the purpose of their work is by being able to see what OKRs are they serving, or what corporate objectives are their projects meeting. So Kanban is a sort of a niche Kanban tool for those of you who might have implemented Kanban in your environments, and for the people who use Kanban method, we have a specialized tool for that. We talked a little bit about AI before we started this webinar, and we were sort of discussing what are the various things that we do from AI perspective. So over the last 5 years, we have built some amazing capabilities around AI through our AI platform, which we call Chiron. And Chiron is a conversational digital platform, transformation platform, which begins with providing a conversational AI interface to any kind of work that you're doing in our system. So whether you have a question on a general project management or work management topic, or whether you have a question on a product capability, you can interact with the Chiron interface to ask questions. And depending on the nature of the question, it will let you. It'll provide you answers that answer those questions. So you could ask questions around what is Scrum versus Kanban, for example, or you could say, what does Nimble do to help me forecast my projects, things like that. So you could be very tool specific, or you could be subject specific, and we provide that through what we call a Nimble buddy capability. We provide recommendation engines and similarity engine for you to know that similar work has been done before, and it rather than trying to sort of solve the problem all over again, you can either go look at those solutions, or you can go talk to the people who have worked on those solutions, and therefore not reinvent the wheel each time you have a new complex problem. So we provide those kinds of capabilities, and then we provide integration with a variety of technologies that then let you automate the mundane work that you might want to not do anymore, given all of the capabilities of generative AI and other AI capabilities. So we provide that so that you can sort of focus on the more challenging aspects of a project while doing basic work through the AI capabilities that we provide. So a lot of capability there that you can again learn in terms of our AI integration with our various products. Just a quick look at our customers, and you will see some very well-known brands, and probably not that are not so familiar. But we have, like I said, customers all around the world, and that have sort of endorsed our capabilities for over the years. So we'll be very happy to engage with any of you who are looking for such things. But nevertheless, let me for now hand over the session to Elizabeth. So Elizabeth, a very warm welcome. And really looking forward to your session today. Let me go ahead and stop sharing, and you can come on.
Okay, I will get my slides to share. But Mahesh, there's been a question in the chat about the Chiron functionality. Does Chiron pull its answers purely from NimbleWorks' internal brain? And given you've just talked about that, I thought you might want to answer it now.
I'm just trying to see where the question is.
It's in the Q&A panel.
Oh, Q&A, sorry, looking in the chat. There you go. So we provide integration with ChatGPT, as is everybody else, and therefore it does it not only from NimbleWorks' internal brain, but also from the web as well.
Okay. I hope that answers the question, Sarah.
Thank you for the question.
All right. So hopefully now you can see my screen. Has that come up okay?
Yes. Yes,
brilliant.
It is.
All right. Thank you for the thumbs up. I love these reactions in Zoom because it just makes it so much more reassuring that you know that I'm showing the right thing. Well, I know you've briefly been introduced to me already, but I just wanted to say hello again. I am a project manager, just like many of you. I've written a few books about it, including one about managing all the multiple projects that we have on the go at the moment. I mentor project managers and I juggle all the things just like you do. And today I just wanted to share a little bit about what we can do to think about the impact of AI on our careers. So this is where we're going to go, because if you have a project manager brain like me, perhaps you'll be interested in planning everything out and knowing what we're going to cover today. So we'll talk a little bit about some skills that you can build that will help you stay relevant in a world driven by AI. So we'll start off with some chat about improving critical thinking. I want to talk about emotional intelligence. We'll talk about how you can bring originality into the work that you do and how that can complement the AI tools that you use. And then how we need to focus on well-being and what we can push to AI. What is the routine stuff that actually we're very happy to get rid of? So how do we let go of that routine? And of course, we've got lots of time for questions as well. So I say lots of time, hopefully we will have some time. Please do feel free to put your questions into the chat, into the Q&A panel, and we will dig through them. And I know people have submitted questions in advance as well, so we'll get some time to come on to those. Okay, so why is this a concern for us as project managers? Well, there's some Goldman Sachs research that says 2/3 of occupations could be at least partially automated. And there's lots of different occupations that could affect. And potentially project management is in there. I think we all know that that's coming. But it doesn't necessarily mean instant unemployment for us as project managers. Gartner did some work a while ago, and you might have heard this statistic before, that said 80% of the work of project management will be eliminated by 2030 due to AI. And to be honest, when you dig into that research report, what they're talking about is the stuff that you probably don't want to do anyway. It's all the status updates, all the number crunching, all the data collection, tracking and reporting. And I'm perhaps not that worried about letting go of those things. It just means that there is more space for us to do different types of work as project managers. So yes, there are some scary numbers out there. Yes, there are some forecasts that AI will, decimate what we end up doing. But I think actually the whole picture is perhaps a little bit better than what we might think. But I'm interested in hearing your thoughts on that too. So before we go any further, we're talking about AI, but what actually does that mean? So I wanted to pull out this picture to sort of give you a concept of the different flavors that we're talking about when we talk about artificial intelligence in the workplace. So artificial intelligence is a great big umbrella term that covers numerous different tools and technologies, everything from generative AI, ChatGPT, to much larger scale corporate databases and beyond, number crunching. So you've got machine learning in there, which is looking at building computer systems that learn from data. So you don't have to program the algorithms, it will work out what you want to know. Then deep learning is looking how do we process data in a way that's inspired by human brains, and then looking at natural language processing and large language models where we're feeding in lots of data and it's looking for complex pictures. And these are some of the things that you might recognize from if you've ever had to do those capture things to prove you're a human. Click if it's got a picture of a motorcycle in, things like that could be, AI is deciding if that picture's got a motorcycle in and you're confirming it, and it's learning as it goes and improving as it goes. So AI comes in lots of different variations, I suppose, but that's what we're talking about when I'm using that today. And there's the whole spectrum of these things that could be incorporated into the work that you do as project managers. Another piece of interesting research was done by Antonio Nieto Rodriguez and Ricardo Viana Vargas, two very big names in the world of project management. And they produced this study, and it looked at it looked at lots of things actually, all to do with AI in the workplace for project managers. And one of the questions was, how worried are you about AI taking over your job? And within 5 years, this was on a scale of, this is not 29% of people are worried. This is on a scale of not at all worried to extremely worried. Where would you put yourself? So people had quite a free choice of where to put themselves on the scale. And on average, it turned out to be about 29% worried. But in 15 years, obviously, we're predicting that there is a trend towards more and more parts of our role being taken over by computer processing. So perhaps this is something that, don't go home and lose sleep over it today, but perhaps you'll want to think about, how do you build that into your career path? What is it that you want to do? How do you want to train up your team so that as you go forward, your next career steps in 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, we are staying relevant and staying useful in the profession? Okay, so there's a number of different ways that project management is changing, can change as a result of artificial intelligence being baked into the tools that we use today, like Mahesh was saying about Chiron, and also being made available to us in other tools like ChatGPT, which we would use outside of our project management software, or embedded into a tool if there's an integration. So let's just have a quick look at those. And these 5 things were highlighted in a PwC study about how AI is going to disrupt project management. So they talked about being able to get more business insight. So looking at large data sets and surfacing useful information. So that's good. Risk management. So being able to comb through previous risk databases, mitigations, and then being able to perhaps suggest different things that could be done based on what worked or didn't work in the past for risk, or being able to search through, natural language processing, search through all your emails and highlight some risks that have come out just in the narrative of the chat back and forth in the team. Human capital optimization is resource capacity planning, looking at gaps, making suggestions about where we could put people, where their skills might be best used. If we've got skills databases, making sure that we're really optimizing the way that we use people across a portfolio of projects. And then it can take actions as well. So actions is things like workflows, taking data and combining it with other sources of data. So it could be, one of the examples they give is flying drones over a building site, taking photos, comparing that to what progress should have been made, and then providing the project manager with some recommendations about what they might want to do next based on what progress had been made, or automatically updating status reports. And active assistance is doing the heavy lifting of project management. So preparing reports, updating dashboards, doing things in real time, sending out notifications, listening into meetings and preparing summaries. I know many project managers have those tools available to them today. Consolidating notes, all that kind of stuff that we could do. So it's a project management, as many roles, can be affected in a number of different ways by these tools, but hopefully not in scary ways. These are all good things that should help us make better decisions and make better use of our time. So artificial intelligence and robotic processing automation, which I haven't mentioned yet, but that's how do we create workflows? How do we get things processed by teeny robots, not real robots, but algorithms within the computer? What can we process automatically? And they all have the common theme of making better use of the data that we've got. So it should mean we get better data insights, more reliable, more standard. We get better decision making as a result of that. And all of that should underpin and support being able to deliver projects more successfully. So my take on all of this is that AI is not a bad thing. We do have to know, however, how to work with it, and in a world where there are more tech influences. So that's what I want to come on to and talk about now. Let me just see if there's any questions before we go any further. By all means, do stick things in the chat or in the questions panel as you think of them. Okay, so the first thing that I think we can do as project managers to be AI proof in our careers for the next however many years is to think about how we can improve our critical thinking. What I mean by that is analyzing facts and making a judgment call, the judgment that only a human could make. So to give you some examples, we use critical thinking all day, every day at work. You're looking at various projects and you're deciding on a priority. You can evaluate the tools and techniques that are the most appropriate because you are tailoring the method of how you deliver your project, tailoring the tools you use, creating custom fields within those tools based on the project context, the team, the culture, the level of maturity in the organization. You're also using your critical thinking to come up with risks and issues and mitigating actions. What are you going to do as a result of those? And you can improve. You can look at what's happening with feedback from your users, from your project stakeholders, and you can do things differently and better as you move forward. So we have lots of opportunities to do critical thinking, but it's also something that we can lean on AI to help with. So before this session, I asked ChatGPT a question. This is only the free version of ChatGPT. So I have heard that the paid version gives you better quality outputs. But I asked it this question, and I'm interested to know which project of those 3 projects, if I'll let you read it, would you say is the priority to work on right now? And I'll let you put your answers into the chat. So I'll read it out for those of you who are multitasking and doing your emails or something else at the same time. I have 3 projects. Project A is due in November. This project is for our largest and most profitable customer. Project B is due in January, but it requires a lot of upfront work. Project C will take about 4 weeks, but I don't have the staff available to do the tasks until October. Project C has the most management insight. And I asked ChatGPT, based on just that sketch of the 3 projects, which project should be my priority today? Alistair's put in the chat 100% A. Okay, so it's interesting. Someone else has come in. Helen says Project B. A few other people are saying Project A. I mean, really, you know so little about these projects that it's very hard for you to make an informed judgment call, right? And if this was actually your PMO, your projects, you would find out a lot more about them. You'd have loads more information and you'd be able to make a much more informed decision. So some people are saying C, Project A due to the profits, B. So, you know, as a group of professional project managers, we're coming up with basically any of them we could work on, given this little bit of information that we've got. So let me show you what ChatGPT said. It said, start by allocating the resources and planning for Project B. Then get your staffing ready for Project C. And then monitor the progress of Project A. So it actually didn't come back with a 1-line answer that said, work on Project C, work on Project A. It gave me a sort of a 3-point plan of what to do next, which I'm not sure I'd call that critical thinking, perhaps not in the same way that a human would do it, but it's it was a much more informed and detailed answer than I was expecting. And even if this is completely wrong and you read it and you think through, actually, I don't agree, you've got a starting point. You'll know, why don't you agree with it? Why does it feel wrong? So that's, you know, the kind of support that ChatGPT could provide to us if we needed to do that kind of analysis. So where's my mouse? Here we go. So in terms of critical thinking and what we could do to think about how we move that forward in our careers, if you're using generative AI, whether it's
Elizabeth,
within it,
sorry,
yes?
I thought I will ask you. I put you on the spot a little bit. What would have been your own answer?
Oh, my own answer. Let's see.
Yeah.
I have to say, I probably would have gone with A because it's due the soonest. And
Okay.
I
Okay.
would have worked on that and made sure that that was ready, because November is like in a couple of weeks, isn't it? So,
Yep.
and it's a really large and profitable customer. But in real life, we don't ever just work on one thing, do we? I would not have stopped working on Project B and Project C, but they would have taken up less of my time, I think. But equally,
Okay.
I'm not sure there is a right answer to this.
Yep.
But thank you
That
for offering.
I think that's where the answer lies. Okay, great. Sorry about that. Yeah.
No, that's fine. It's great. But that underpins my comment here about making sure, if you're using generative AI, that you apply a little bit of professional judgment to it. So read what it's giving you carefully, decide if you want to go with those suggestions or not, and is it accurate or not? Where is it pulling the information from? And you can ask, you can say, tell me the source for that information. Where did you find that information out, if you're asking it for facts? And is it reasonable? When you're thinking through your critical thinking, you would be doing this analysis in your head anyway, or you'd be questioning a colleague, or you'd be checking reliable sources of project knowledge within your organization, talking to your subject matter experts. And ChatGPT should be no different to that if you're applying your critical thinking. Yes, Crystal suggested that. She says, I always ask it to cite its source. Very important. So just when you are using AI tools and you're wanting to apply your critical thinking, just, you know, bring your business knowledge to the situation and don't just blindly follow. It's not smarter than you at the moment. Okay, so we want you to be the expert in the room who can do that fact checking if AI data is presented by anyone in the team. You need to stay curious. You need to ask lots of questions and a little bit cautious as well, just in case things are coming up that perhaps you might find don't really gel with your organizational culture or the route that you wanted to take. Okay, so the next thing I think we can do to stay relevant in a world that's using a lot more technology now than it was 10 years ago is to think about how we can work on emotional intelligence. For me, that is the ability to manage and your reactions appropriately and react to other people's emotions appropriately. So we're basically working on workplace relationships and having those professional workplace relationships. If you've read, I don't think I've got it here, Anthony Messino has written an excellent book called Emotional Intelligence for Project Managers, which is in its second edition now. And in the book, he takes this model, which is based on the work of Goleman, and he's put together this framework for emotional intelligence skills for project managers and where we should be putting our time. The bottom layer here is managing ourselves. So being self-aware and being able to manage those emotions when we have big emotions at work, because it's fine. We're going to get angry. We're going to get upset. It's how we handle those feelings that will help us self-regulate in the workplace. The next two blocks are around managing our relationships with other people. So being socially aware, having empathy and demonstrating empathy, being aware of your organizational culture and all that internal office politics that goes on. We want to make sure that we are not putting our emotions on other people, and we're setting boundaries as well around how we want our relationships to work. Managing those stakeholder relationships, as well as being able to speak truth to power and develop other people within our teams. The final level is about the competencies you need to work as a team. So if you are familiar with PMI's talent triangle, these would be the things that would fall under the power skills, really. I mean, I suppose they all are, but these things around communication, conflict management, being a leader, wanting to set vision, motivating the team, all that stuff that falls under being a team leader. So when we're talking about emotional intelligence, it can sound a lot like a big corporate buzzword, but when you break it down, it's actually very specific, tangible things that we can all work on. So if there's anything on there that you think, oh, I'm not really sure if so-and-so in my team has, maybe that's an area they could develop, conflict management, for example, or maybe that's something I want to develop, think about how you could perhaps build that into the career plans over the next couple of years. The simplest, easiest thing to do is just to start reflecting. We do stop, start, continue exercises. We run lessons learned. As project managers, we do retrospectives. There's lots of opportunities for us to reflect on our project management practice, our processes, our tools and techniques. But can we also reflect on ourselves? How did we respond in any given situation? How would you do that differently if that situation came up again? What sort of things might influence that situation if it happened again? And how could you influence the situation so that the outcome was different, better, different? So taking maybe 5-10 minutes with a coffee every couple of weeks, or just after you've had a particularly challenging situation at work, to sit down and just work through what happened, what could I have done differently, what was the outcome, was I happy with the outcome, how did I feel about it? Just ask yourself some reflection questions. So in terms of building emotional resilience, we can look at the impacts of organisational change, because we are project people who are delivering change into organisations, and we need to be at least aware, if not sensitive, to how that makes people feel and the reactions that we could well get from those people. So if you don't have change managers in your team, how could you build some change management into the role that you are doing as the project manager? How can you be more empathetic as a team leader if you feel that you're not empathetic enough at the moment? And it could just be as simple as checking in with your team, just asking people how they are at the beginning of a meeting and truly listening to the answers. And you can do that in person. More and more, it's meetings like we're having today where it's virtual, but you can get together where possible. I think the level of emotion that you might want to show at work will be different for different workplaces and different for different teams, because you may well be more comfortable with some of your colleagues than you are with others. But if you are happy to share your emotions and tell people how you're feeling on any given day, then that can help them feel free to be able to have those same conversations back with you, and to know that if they did have something that they wanted to share, there was a challenge within the team or a conflict or a communication issue they wanted to resolve, that perhaps they would feel more comfortable talking to you about it. And that kind of warmth, that ability to connect with others as humans, is something that AI is not going to be able to replace. So if you can build those connections with your project team and engage other people in the journey to whatever it is you're delivering, however it is you're going to get there, then I think that will go a long way to keeping you a really useful, relevant human to have on the team. The third thing I wanted to highlight in terms of skills is originality. One of the downsides with AI, and this is generative AI specifically, it can only create and sympathize what it's learned. So some of the larger machine learning models can take data and learn as they go, because they're building algorithms and learning from those results. But if you're putting questions into generative AI, it's not going to come up with anything original. It will only come up with what is available to it on the internet already, the databases. Whereas you're different, because you can think things that are original, that have never been thought of before. And we can help our teams become more creative, get the teams together, we can learn from each other, bounce ideas around. And whether you're brainstorming user personas, whether you're doing giant mind maps and then organizing things based on bouncing ideas off subject matter experts in a room, perhaps you're organizing different workshops and trying to come up with really creative solutions and ideas, all of that stuff is hopefully going to give you the edge over AI generated solutions, because you can bring all of your human knowledge and originality to that. The way that we can do that by building it into our project management practice is giving ourselves time. How many of you have really had to rush through a project and you think, yep, that's a good enough solution, let's just go with it, we're under pressure, we've got to go. If you can, put some time into your planning, into your solutioning phases of your work, and allow people to just have the time to come up with smart solutions. And often if we take the pressure off, people will come up with different or more creative answers because they've had just time to reflect and have that light bulb moment in the shower that morning when they've come into work and they've got something great to share with the rest of the team. We can also draw on human experience. So what could we build in that allows us to get a wider pool of experience than just our project team? So can we get user groups? Can we use case studies, the lived experience? And the reason that's important is because the lived experience of one of your customers has probably not been written up into a case study that is available for ChatGPT to scroll through. Probably isn't going to surface those insights for you. And that knowledge might not even be in your own project data repository because it happened after your project was delivered. The customer got some benefit from it and they went off and did amazing things with whatever it was that you did. But you stopped tracking it by that point. It's not in your solution. It's not in your tool anymore. So can we get user groups? Can we get case studies? Can you do surveys? Can we create original data to work with ourselves? So think about how you can just expand your horizons and get more inputs into your projects and into your professional practice as well. So can you read professional press? Can you talk to other people? These are not difficult things for you to do, but it's just keeping your mind open and thinking creatively and making connections in a way that generative AI would find difficult to do. So what you want to be future-proofing your career is the expert in the room who's bringing original data and thoughts that will supplement any AI data that's available. We're not saying don't do AI at all, but it's adding on that extra layer. It's adding on those anecdotes that give it a richness, or survey results that provide brand new study data. And hopefully with many of our projects, we can find ways to do that. And then the solution and the design that we build will be richer and more useful because of it. Okay, let me just have a quick check for questions now. All right, so the fourth thing I think it's worth us looking at is managing our well-being. And the reason for that is because I believe project work can be quite lonely. Often, I mean, I'm talking from my own experience, I work on a project with lovely people, but they're not project managers. My project team, my manager and my colleagues are not doing the same things that I do every day. And I work from home. This is my shed in the garden that you can see me in. So I'm not in the office every day because my job doesn't need me to be. And I like it. I'm not complaining, but I do think that it can work out to be quite isolating and quite lonely. And if we're bringing another layer of technology into that and saying, actually, we have to talk to people even less now because we don't even have to do reporting. I don't even have to talk to people about status reports because the AI is going to magic it all up for me. Then am I going to speak to people at all during the day? And how does that make me feel? I'm going to see a question popped up. Let me come back to that one, Sarah. So when we need to be thinking about well-being and thinking about what it means to be stuck in your shed for 8 hours a day with a headset on, how do we want to cope with that? How can we plan for being able to cope with that? Can we think about the strategies that might help our teams cope with that so we can model them or we can suggest it to them when we feel like our teams are overwhelmed or they need a bit more energy or whatever? And there's two different types of coping strategies that work well for project managers. And you might find that there are other things that you do that work well for you. But these two buckets are useful for me to think of. The emotion-focused coping strategies involve efforts to regulate the emotional consequences of being under stress. So that could be things like going for a walk, coffee with colleagues. And in fact, this came out of some research. And I will have to share the name of the researcher with you afterwards if you're interested, because I can't think of it off the top of my head. Christine Unter-Hitzenberger from the University of Leeds, I think. So she did a survey of project managers and found that in stressful, challenging situations, they tended to lean into emotion-focused coping strategies, or the other type I'll come on to in a second. So this mindfulness, calling my mentor, going out for coffee, having some fresh air are all great, maybe more of a short-term impact, but they help us cope with those difficult emotions when they hit us at work. The other set of coping strategies that Christine and her research team came up with were, how do we deal with the problem itself? How can we sort out the problem that is causing us the stress? And I think project managers probably lean quite heavily into being problem solvers. So yes, it's nice to think about journaling, but actually, me personally, I'm going to think, how can I fix this so I don't get stressed anymore? I'm going to find a new job. I'm going to set better boundaries. I'm going to add a team member in. I'm going to think of the other things I can do to change the process, improve the process, streamline the decision making, put an AI robot in so I don't have to do it anymore. How can I fix the problem? And then I won't have the emotions in the first place. So the problem-focused coping strategies will perhaps give you a better longer-term result because you're removing the cause of the stress in the first place. But it could be that you actually end up using both. So interesting to hear from you now. If you can drop into the chat, which one do you think resonates the most with you? Would you lean towards problem-focused coping strategies? Would you work more on emotion-focused coping strategies, or both? We've had comments in the chat saying both. So yeah, there's again no right or wrong. Mahesh, I can see you've come off mute. Did you want to come in there?
I was just going to give you some of the responses that were coming up, but yeah, I would think both. You have moments of when you're feeling overwhelmed and you want to do emotional focused stuff, and then of course you are on the problem solving mode, and you've got to figure out the problem and solve it.
Exactly. So there is quite a mixture of things in the chat. Both problem solving first, emotion focused in the short term. Both emotion first, then focus on the problem. Yeah. So again, no right or wrong answer, but it's just interesting to think about what might work best for you in the moment. And if you're leading a team, how would you help your team with those things as well? All right. So in terms of well-being, I find, going to a conference is not necessarily top of everybody's well-being list. I'd rather have a massage or something like that, I expect. But in terms of being able to connect with humans, what we're trying to do is find ways where you can feel like your problems are not your own. Your problems are universal. And seeking out conferences and connecting with other project professionals and just chatting with people will make you realize that whatever challenges you're going through at work are very likely to be the same as pretty much every other project manager who has worked in an office environment in the last however many years. And it can often feel quite isolating, like we're the only person dealing with a difficult stakeholder, or we're the only person whose project is not moving forward and we're under pressure. That's not the case. It doesn't necessarily solve your problem, but a problem shared might mean that at least you leave that conversation feeling like you're not quite so alone. We can also create networks for yourself and for other people. So could you be a mentor to somebody? If you don't have a mentor, could you find a mentor so that you've got somebody who you can chat to? And just making well-being front and center of conversations that you have with your team and with yourself. So don't get to the end of the week and think, oh, now I have to fit in 15 minutes of well-being time. It doesn't need to be programmed or scheduled, but it should hopefully be something that we're thinking about, because it's just as much a part of being able to perform well at work as having the right tools and techniques. So what we're hoping to do is to find those ways to bring human connections to our team and setting a good example. So others will learn from us, and we're modeling great behavior. We're modeling being aware of well-being and making resources available to the people in our teams who might want to have access to them. Okay, I saw a, right, let's move on. I saw a question, but I'm going to come back to it, Sarah. All right. So the final thing I think we can do to stay relevant with when AI comes for our jobs is to let go of the routine. Give it some stuff to do. So AI is fantastic at all those repetitive tasks. It's fantastic at data analysis. It's great to chat to if you want a second opinion on something. So I know project managers who use ChatGPT and ask it for advice, like acting as if it was your mentor. And if we can use the workflows in our tools, if we can offload some of the tasks to it, then we'll have more time to do the things that we enjoy and that we can make more of a difference. So if we're thinking about the kind of work that AI can do for us as project managers, it can support with task prioritization and scheduling, where schedules should go and what that workload planning would look like, and looking at dependencies Now, I'm going to give you some examples, but it's very much going to depend on what your tools can actually do, what features are already in the project management software that you use, or if you're looking for a new tool, perhaps you'd have these things as a consideration for going out to market and looking for solutions. Resource allocation. So if you've got some smart algorithms running around capacity planning and the work that people are working on, you can make sure that you are looking at skills database and pulling people with the right skills to fill the jobs at the right time. We mentioned risk earlier, so it can look at risks and, for example, go through the database of risks that have happened in the past, look at which ones turned into issues, perhaps suggest some reasons why that happened and what you might want to do to stop that from happening in your case. So this mitigation strategy did not work because we ended up with an issue. Therefore, it could perhaps suggest you don't do that, or you do something else. I think it's fantastic, and perhaps you've even got this already within your tools. This is probably the easiest thing to start with because it's already built into a lot of project management tools. It's just the notifications and reminders, scheduling meetings, taking notes in meetings, answering FAQ. So if you've ever had a chatbot on the side of a screen and you've asked a question, it says, what do you need help with? That kind of thing. So can you build that into your projects to stop calls coming into the help desk and into the way that you perhaps onboard new members of the team? How could we use those FAQ type responses in the way that we do business and our processes? Forecasting. Humans are not that great at forecasting, if you ask me, because we tend to bring a lot of bias to the process of estimation, and we're often quite optimistic about what can be achieved. We perhaps don't layer on the different multiple projects and obligations that our subject matter experts have when they're supporting multiple projects. So having something, the AI algorithms present back to us some smart analysis of actually what might happen if we do these things using historical data, but predicting forwards without having to do loads of manual number crunching for earned value analysis, but just having that data available to us quickly and in a nice, smart, easy to understand kind of way. And finally, time tracking. There's a lot to be said for being able to track your time and how long you spend on particular activities, especially if you want to improve your estimating. But we all know if you've tried to get people to do timesheets, it's hard work because they don't like it. They don't want to fill their time in. They can't remember what they did. They're worried they're going to be judged because they haven't booked enough hours this week. All that stuff comes into play. So perhaps AI could start suggesting where you've spent your time based on the activities that you've done or the meetings that you've been in. It could categorize things for you. And if that's built into your software, you can start to alleviate people's worries about how time is tracked. But you do need to do it in a way that would not make somebody feel that they were being spied on and that all their keystrokes are being logged, so that a tool is knowing exactly what they're doing at every minute of the day. But if it could surface at least some of that information, you'd get something in your timesheets, whereas potentially at the moment you might get nothing. So if all that sounds like a bit of a stretch for where you are, you can start by just looking at what software you've got at the moment, what features are built into it. Is there anything that you can use? Is there a workflow that you can set up? Because that would be a really straightforward thing to get going. Set up some processes, set up some automation approvals, because all of that stuff will help you save time doing it manually and reduce human error. So we had an example the other day where we had a process, the thing got sent off through the process electronically, and then the person who was supposed to do the next process step, there was no person named in that process step. It was empty, so it didn't go anywhere and just sat there. So our process broke and needed a human to intervene to be able to sort that out. But once you've got over little niggles like that, because it's just about learning how best to use your tools, how best to set these workflows up, now, we don't have that problem anymore. Things can go through the workflow. It's saving us time because everybody gets an email alert about what they need to do. It's very straightforward, and there's none of this sort of chasing people because the system is doing it for us. If you're putting together some PMO strategic investment appraisals, perhaps think about what AI tools you want to bring into that. How do you want to future-proof the tools and technology that you have within your PMO going forward? And what would you want to add potentially to your tool suite especially this time of year, because we're all budget planning for 2024. Is there something that you'd like to be looking at for next year? So I don't think we have to worry too much about tasks dropping off our to-do lists. I think when we find that happening, the time that we will get back, we will be using on value-added activities. We will be engaging stakeholders, building working relationships, looking out for our team, doing the critical thinking and bringing our originality and creativity and the motivation that we bring to our teams. Will be excellent leaders, and we'll have much more time to do the things that really make a difference to people. One of the questions that was submitted before we got started was resources for learning more about this. And I've put some on here, but the one I would suggest that you start with, if you haven't done it already, is PMI's course on generative AI. It'll take you, I don't know, an hour, if that, to go through and look at the different resources. It's free, so you don't have to pay for it. And you just need to have a PMI account to log in and access the materials. But it's very straightforward and very useful. And you can get copies of these slides, so don't feel you have to write down any of that stuff. All right, so that's all I wanted to cover off today. If you want to keep in touch with me afterwards, by all means do. And if you think of questions after this, once we've hung up, then I've put my contact details on the screen so you can find out how to get in touch with me for all the things that you wish you'd asked. But I think I'll come to Sarah's question now, and then I think, Mahesh, we've probably got some questions either on from the original
the registration process. So yeah,
the
so
registration.
I think
that's what I'm saying.
right.
Let me stop.
So
Sharing.
let's start with the questions that we have on the panel right now. So Sarah had asked a question earlier. What's the balance then between keeping original data to ourselves and sharing so that it becomes part of the generative AI, especially for outside the organization?
I think that's really an interesting question, because I think there's two parts to it, isn't there? If it's data that I'm going to share within my organization, I feel that that's just part of organizational knowledge management. We should share widely within our boundaries, within the walls of our organization, so that we can learn as an organization. In terms of putting stuff into ChatGPT and having it learn from my personal experience, I feel much more nervous about that. I don't think you should be putting in any corporate sensitive data into ChatGPT. I don't think you should be putting any customer information or people's names or anything like that. You've got to sanitize what goes into ChatGPT and ask it quite generic questions. Not because I don't want it to know my original data, but just because I don't know what it's going to do with that data. And I also think, in terms of competitive advantage, perhaps there are reasons why we wouldn't want it to have our original data. So it's a great question, Sarah, and I think you really have to decide based on what the information is that you're looking to feed in, and maybe set up a data repository where you start storing stuff internally that becomes your knowledge repository in-house.
Right. And a couple of other things that I've heard about on that topic has been about intellectual property. So anything that is confidential to the organization, or product, etc., that you're working on, if you don't want that going out, you obviously don't want to put that in there. And of course, any kind of personally identifiable information that you already mentioned.
Definitely.
All right. So while we look for some of the other questions, Linza, do you want to go ahead and ask the question that we received earlier?
Sure. All right. So this question is from Dominique. The question is, how can we begin to introduce AI into our everyday work tasks?
I think that depends on whether you've got AI within the tools that you already have, the tool suite you already have, or whether you don't. And let's assume that you haven't got anything that you feel is really AI-ish at work, I would open a ChatGPT account and then just ask it questions. Say things like, I've got this meeting today. Do you have any top tips on taking minutes? I'm in this situation. Use it as kind of an electronic mentor. What advice would you give a new project manager who's starting a project about production lines? And then see what it pulls back. Or rephrasing things. So if you've got an email to write to a particular stakeholder, or you've got a status report, often I find that my team produce status updates that are really long, And in the past, I've had to spend a lot of time on a Friday trying to make it into 2 or 3 bullet points to fit into the tiny box I'm supposed to submit it in. So you could take out any identifiable data, perhaps, but then paste in the content and say, can you summarize this in 200 words? So there could be some small things that you could start using it for. But I would recommend, if you're thinking about actual project management tasks, processes, workflows, task automation, that kind of stuff would be great. But you are going to need perhaps an investment to do that.
So do you think, Elizabeth, that this is something that we've been asked a number of times? Do you think that it's worthwhile for everyone to go out and get a paid account at $20 a month?
I don't know.
ChatGPT?
Well, clearly I don't. Otherwise, I would have done that myself already, and I have not.
Right.
So I think it's worth getting a free account and checking it out and seeing what it gives you back. I have to say, I was really impressed with the answers I've got from ChatGPT.
Yes.
And if the next version up, the paid version, is even better, then it did make me feel perhaps I should at least pay for a month and see how good it is. But I used it for a week or so, and then I haven't used it at all this week. So I think if I was going to pay money for it, I'd want to make sure I had reason to use it regularly.
Okay.
Bill
The
said
paid
in the
version
chat
also
that
has
it's much
now.
more superior.
Yeah. Okay, go ahead, Linda.
Yes. Next question is from Gokul. How well would it groom candidates who are trying to upskill to a PM?
I think it would actually be, generative AI would be really good at helping you learn the right skills, because you could type something into ChatGPT every day and say, I want to become a project manager. Give me 3 things I need to know about resource planning, and ask it, what are the different ways that I could mitigate a risk? So if you're learning project management, you could use that back and forth conversation to really get some experience. And then the great thing is you can genuinely have a conversation. So if it comes back with, here are the ways you can mitigate a risk, you could say, well, tell me more about number 2, or in this situation, which one would you suggest? And it's not perhaps as good as real life on the job experience, but it's a different way of learning. So especially if you're studying for PMP or any certification, if you wanted to test out your skills or look at the different focus areas to build on it, it could be useful.
There's a question about doing a short live demo. So unfortunately, we won't be able to do any demos today, but we'd be happy to follow up with a session that if any of more of you are interested in, we could do another short sort of webinar to do the demo. There is a question on what works best for task prioritization based on criticality and business need. That's from Alok.
In what respect? What best for task prioritization based on criticality and business needs? So if we think about how would we as humans prioritize tasks, there's a lot that would go into making that decision.
Yes.
You'd have to set up categories or criteria or an algorithm that said, if you get these, look at these 5 different criteria, and that's how we prioritize. So for example, we prioritize looking at how much business benefit is it going to bring? Is there going to be any resource implications? Does it mean we have to stop another project? What's the sustainability impact? Is it business critical because it helps us meet a regulation? So we have a lot of different prioritization factors that feed into whether a particular project is something that should be a priority or not for the organization. And you'd apply the same with your tasks. I think task prioritization is probably something we could spend another hour talking about. How do you work out what's important or not to do?
Yes, and I can add that in our own work that we have done trying to build in some of these capabilities in the tool, it is the amount of data that you need in order to really make the right recommendations on, especially based on business need and what constitutes criticality. It can take a lot of data, and very often the data is not available, and so that's again one place where I think that the personal experience of the project team or the stakeholders, all of the people involved in the project is going to be far more superior than anything that the AI tool can provide. All right, Josh has a question. What's your favorite AI tool at the moment? I think you kind of referred to it already. Is it ChatGPT? I guess.
To be honest, that's the one I use the most. The thing is, AI, I don't think is out there in a way that is transformative yet. And I think there's probably a few organizations that are spearheading it. We talk a lot about it. It comes up in lots of surveys and sessions like this. But actually, if you go and you ask a straw poll of 10 of your contacts on LinkedIn who is actively using AI to do project management day to day, I think very few people will say that they genuinely are. Having said that, some of those things that we've got that we use have been around for a long time. So, resource planning, smart scheduling, tools, project management software has had some of this stuff built in for many years already now. So it's just almost taking it to the next level and applying a even smarter sense of how we can use our data. But we've talked about big data and machine learning for years and years. So it's there and it's out there. We've got no code options and robotic processing automation that many PMOs have been looking at for a while to automate the repetitive tasks. So it may well be out there, but it does very much depend on the tool set that your organization has as to whether people are actually actively using it or not. And I think a lot of people, when they think about AI, do just think about ChatGPT, and because it's like having a conversation with a robot on the other side of the screen, which is kind of the science fiction of it all. But actually the more useful stuff for us is the big data, number crunching, data analysis of big data sets. And perhaps some of our projects don't require that.
Yeah. And again, a short plug, of course, you can certainly feel free to look at Nimble product capabilities in terms of the AI feature that we provide. But nevertheless, every day you log into LinkedIn, you see a new list of the most effective or favorite AI tools. So there is no shortage of recommendations on AI tools. Linza, any other questions that you have from?
Yes, one question is from Judy. So Judy is interested in learning ways to streamline task management using AI. So first question is this possible? So Judy has fiddled around with ChatGPT, but really would love to understand more about how to automate repetitive processes using AI.
If it's about automating repetitive processes, then you'll need to set something up that will enable you to be able to do that at work. So you've got to plug in whatever it is, it will run a process, and then you'll get an output out the other end. Some of our project management work works like that, but often tasks require a little bit more flexibility in how they're carried out. So if it's task prioritization, it's a little bit about like I think it was Alok asked about that earlier on. But workflows, we've had workflows in project management and processes since the beginning, right? We have to do things in certain order. We move projects through the life cycle. So anything you can do to document that and automate the handoffs between people would be helpful. So even if it's something as simple as how do I set up a checklist? When all of these things are completed, it moves to the next person. I don't think I really answered the question, Lindsay. I got carried away. Whoops. Do you think did I miss the point?
No, I think you responded to it quite okay. Was there another part of the question, Linza, or was that all?
The second part was how to automate repetitive processes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, got it.
Okay, well, that's going to be tool specific, unfortunately. So yes, it can be done. Even in a database tool that I use, we've got processes that say if this task goes over by however many days, flag it up, send an email alert, and move it to this board so that we can keep it monitored, which is more of a process than any particularly smart intelligence, but it's something that is quite straightforward to automate.
Right. All right. So we are already about 4 minutes over. Let's take one last question, and I think then we will wind up. And then if there are any other unanswered questions, we will respond to you offline between us and Elizabeth. So Linza, one final question.
Yes. So this question is from Anand. How project plan can be effectively generated using AI?
Well, you can type in your task list and ChatGPT will put you together a plan. There's also tools, I know software tools are available that will allow you to say, I'm doing this particular type of project, and it's almost like a template, but it can then pull back common tasks that would be relevant for that kind of work. So again, as long as you've got the tools that will allow you to process that level of information, that can help. I do have to say, though, that if you're an experienced project manager, putting together a project plan of 20 or 30 tasks is going to not perhaps take you that long to do off using your own brain, rather than the effort of having to find a tool and get that done. But if you're a new project manager and you need some help putting together and sequencing tasks, then the software is definitely out there that would allow you to do that.
Yeah, and just as a additional thing that we provide, we have extensive templating capabilities which are already there, and you can build your own custom templates. And over a period of time, you would have built exactly what Elizabeth has said, the organizational experience and organizational learning in what goes into a typical project of a particular kind, and then you can reuse that for informing new projects. So that's something that is part of the overall roadmap that we have. Wonderful. I would like to thank Elizabeth first for this wonderful session. I really like the way that you framed the whole problem. I'm going to share my slide deck one last time so that everyone has contact information for Elizabeth. Just give me a second here. All right, and that's the last one here. So feel free to reach out to Elizabeth for any of the things that she talked about today and get her help. And if you'd like to take a look at how we can help you solve your problems, get in touch with us as well. Take a look at our website. Elizabeth, thank you so much for doing this. It's been a pleasure working with you, and I look forward to continuing to do so. I'm really sad that we are not able to meet at the PMI summit later next week, actually. But hopefully we will do that soon.
Yes. Well, thank you very much for having me. Thank you for all the great questions. It's been really interesting to get your perspective on AI. And for Mahesh and the team, I hope you have a really great conference in Atlanta next week. And
Yep.
Yeah, no doubt we'll talk again.
We'll be in touch. Thank you all. Thanks, and have a great rest of the day. And we will be in touch with you. Thanks a lot. Bye.